Hey, just tell him to not break things right now.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。
220 is what the Rajasthan Royals have managed. Batting first in Delhi, 218 wasn't enough last night for Chennai against Mumbai at the same ground. But it's an afternoon game. It's a side that are under pressure. We'll see what Dale Steyn and Dan Vettori make of it all on Maruti Suzuki presenting ESPN Cricket for T20 Time Out, powered by Intel. Before we get talking about the cricket, just a timely reminder to our viewers, especially those in India, to mask up in public, practice social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols. And if you are eligible, please do take your vaccine as soon as possible. Right, 220. Dan and Dale are here. Dale, that's hard work for bowlers, but did the Sunrisers help their cause?
Wow. Yeah, what's that? 600 something runs in the in the last 3 innings that I've watched there. But no, I don't think they helped their cause that much. Bowling Rashid Khan out is an interesting one. Very early. It's the earliest he's ever been bowled out. And I mean, sometimes it can work for you. I understand like maybe the thinking behind it, but then leaving Nabi with having to bowl with all those right-handers in the way that they were going, it was going to be really tough. And very rarely will you see someone like Vijay Sankar have to run in and bowl the last over of an inning. So just a little bit all over the show there in the back end, and a bit tough for Kane to kind of manage. But if someone's going to chase down these runs the way that Kane's batting, and if he gets off well with Bairstow on that wicket, it looks good. They could get close. You never know. We saw a chase last night, a historic chase last night. So you never know.
You can't help but ideally I would start talking about Josh Butler, made an IPL 100 for him and whatnot, Dan, but you can't help but also first focus on just the tactical plans that Sunrisers came into this game with. Of course, headlined with the change of captaincy and the change of tactics, bringing in Mohammad Nabi and not finding a way to get him involved in the game, among other tactical calls. It just seems like there's a lot that's just not worked for them.
Yeah, well, it seemed like Nabi was brought in to counter those left-handers and Jaswal, Dubé and Miller, and then Dubé was left out of the team. And then they picked up, I suppose, that early wicket of the left-hander with Rashid Khan, and we talked about that tactical decision where that paid off, about getting him in early to break up their power play. But Nabi's a good bowler no matter what, and I think sometimes we get caught in right arm off spinners can only bowl left-handers and vice versa, and sometimes that leaves you wanting a little bit when you wait for the perfect scenario to come to fruition. And I think it didn't in this game. And then Nabi was left to bowl to 2 right-handers and Sampson and Butler that were going full throttle, and that's a tough ask. Where I think him bowling in the 6th or 7th over is something he's more than capable of. So. Sunrisers put themselves in some difficult positions, albeit from some very good batting from Rajasthan's 2 best batsmen.
Can you balance out what was a sound gamble done by the Sunrisers and what wasn't worth it? This call to bowl out Rashid Khan early, even though he bowled in the power play, which seemed to be a good move. And then as that partnership increased, you're leaving yourself vulnerable at the end by leaving more bowlers for that 5th bowler to make up. What among that was sound and unfortunate, and what among that could they have avoided?
Well, I think they just, and it looked like in their own mind, Sunrisers thought, if we don't break this partnership, we're going to be in big trouble. And so if they could break the partnership, then that would bring Nabi into it. And their best way to break the partnership in their mind was Rashid Khan. And that's understandable for how successful he's been. And he's been successful against Josh Butler a lot as well. So they wanted to utilise that potential matchup, but when it doesn't work, this is what happens. And I suppose those are the risks you have to take. And when you're playing well, you can take those risks, and they pay off sometimes. Unfortunately for Sunrisers at the moment, everything they try is not really working, and that's put them in this predicament. So I can understand the logic around bowling Rashid Khan. I think it's a sound one, and I think they wanted to be aggressive, and they were going to deal with those back 3 or 4 overs, hopefully with those 2 dismissed, but it wasn't the case.
Does this then look like a bad tactical call or a selection call? I know it's with the benefit of hindsight, Dale, but you've got to accommodate that maybe a Butler and a Sampson will play for a long time. So if I can't get Nabi on, if there are 2 right-handers, then should we have gone for a Jason Holder? Should we have gone in a way where we better utilize that fourth overseas? Because it doesn't look very good right now, does it?
Look, it doesn't look really good right now, but I understand. I mean, it's a ground that's a high-scoring ground. Last night there was 400 and plus runs scored, and if you want to use your best bowler, Rashid Khan, as a strike bowler, you're going to have to use him the way that Kane used him today. If you're just going to bowl him in the same way that you normally bowl him, then he'll be pretty much a defensive bowler because there's lots of runs to be scored. So you want to use him so that he can potentially take wickets. Anybody that's going to be bowling from the 15th to the 20th over there, you can see it's going to be hard work. So no point in using your best strike bowler as a defensive bowler on a wicket that is giving away a lot of runs. Use him to try and attack. But it looks bad now, obviously, because they scored as many runs as they did, and Nabi only got the one over in. They could have probably squeezed him in a little bit earlier. Between the 7th and the 11th over, they could have used him, but then Kane probably thought he didn't want to give them some kind of platform to accelerate. But he's a good bowler, and he can bowl to right-handed batters. I think sometimes we forget about this. Like Dan said, we just kind of get caught in the mindset that, we'll use our right arm offie to the left-handed batters. But they can get right-handed batters out. They're smart. They can bowl wide. They can bowl slower. We've seen them do this before and get guys out. So a little bit of a fault there. But, I mean, it's a high-scoring ground. It was always going to be a tough call for any bowler that's playing today.
Are these the sorts of calls that at times perhaps are too heavily dictated by data and analysts, Dan? Or is it also a player at times who just says, nah, I don't enjoy bowling to right-handers, so I'll stay out of it? Because we tend to go, you can blame both ways, but we tend to blame analysts at times or data at times for being too rigid.
No, I don't think in Mohammad Nabi's case it is that, because he's been around for so long. He's experienced. He's probably grown up and having to bowl in any circumstance at any time of the game. There is a concern that probably the developing spinner, the spinner that's just coming into the game now, is only set up to bowl one way because of the way that the game or captains or coaches or analysts use them. So I think that could potentially be a concern, because part of being a good spinner is being able to bowl in every single situation and being able to either restrict or attack to left or right-handed batsmen. So I do fear for the spin bowler coming through now that they're only going to be put in certain situations. But I don't think that's the case with Nabi. I think he can bowl anywhere. And if anything tonight, he should have bowled one in the first 6. I think that would have suited him. He's done it so many times, even to 2 right-handers, just to get that one over out of the way so that Kane had a bit of leeway at the back end.
We did dig up the numbers for Mohammad Nabi against right-hand batsmen in the IPL, and his economy is about 8.5, and his average is 73. Now, if you take things out of context, after today, that'll only get worse, but it won't bring in the context of how he was made to bowl later. Sometimes just the numbers aren't enough to tell the story. But let's give Jos Buttler full credit, shall we? Made an IPL 100 for him. Dale's bowled enough to Jos Buttler in his time, and this is more like the Buttler that we know we've come to love in the IPL. Dale, this kind of big impact innings was what Rajasthan Royals needed of him.
Yeah, he's an impact player, isn't he? And I said this the other day. He's like the AB de Villiers kind of player. He can play the laps. And, same kind of thing with he plays those like tennis bat shots over cover and straight. Great eye, great hands, hits all over the ground. And when he sees an opportunity to kind of attack, like he read that play really well with Nabi. He waited for it and he took him down 21 in that over. We've been waiting for this innings from Buttler. He's showed glimpses of it throughout the tournament so far, but this is what Rajasthan have been waiting for too, is for something like this. And maybe it's just happened at the right time for him. They might be able to kick on now, and he might be able to continue this kind of form going in the rest of the tournament. But what a knock. I mean, that was pretty serious. He batted beautifully.
You've bowled to both AB and to Jos Buttler. Which one's harder and why?
The last ball that I bowled to AB, I got him out. So, that was easy. And he will always hear about it. But, they're both tough. Hey? Look, AB's never really batted in the first 6 overs that I've had to play against him. I've always had to kind of come against him in the back end of the innings. And Buttler's been really difficult in the start of the innings. Just when you think I can run in and try and swing it and nick him off, he laps you over a fine leg or laps you over third man. So they bring their different kind of styles to the game. But they're both extremely difficult. I'm not going to lie. AB back end is probably more tough, but I've never bowled him in the start of an innings.
All right. Now, it was a curious start to the innings. It turns out to be Butler's highest score in the IPL, the highest score for a Rajasthan Royals batsman in the IPL then, but he was 8 of 13 at one stage. He wasn't really looking to play out Rashid Khan, if you can count reverse sweeps, and he rode his luck. He could have been given out LBW. He could have been caught at long on. It was a scratchy sort of start, and then suddenly something changed.
Well, I think you sort of describe every 100 that's ever been scored. It's not always fluid. You just see the package. So, look, I think it's not easy at the top for an opening batsman. We think that sometimes that's the easiest place to bat. But when you've got that pressure from Rashid Khan and Bhuvanesh Kumar, it's going to be difficult. And Butler with his, not lack of form. He played well in the last game. I think he got close to 50 against Mumbai. And he was starting to look good. So I think he just needed to get through those early stages against Sunrisers' quality bowlers to get into the easier part of the game. And I think Dale was right that they were just waiting for the likes of Nabi or Vijay Shankar to have to bowl at the back end, and then they really started to capitalise. So I think it was scratchy at the start, but then a really thoughtful innings. And sometimes we don't always associate that with Butler. We just say he's talented and he's got all the shots and he can do lots of different things. But I think tonight was an innings that was well thought out, and he attacked at the right times.
All right. Now, I'm waiting very curiously to see who walks out with Johnny Bairstow to open the innings. It looks like Manish Pandey's got his gloves on and his helmet on, but I don't know if that's just a number 3 ready and eager, or whether he's going to walk out with Butler, with Bairstow. We'll find out in just a bit. But while we are at that, perhaps just a quick word on how perhaps Sunrisers could have at least prevented the damage. There's some sort of damage control, Dale, that they could have done better at, could have stopped a 220 from being or rather get your score to 200 instead of 220. It just looked inevitable those last few overs.
Yeah, it was tough. Like I said, you don't often see someone like Vijay Shankar bowling the last over. So it just kind of gives you an idea. And Dan said it there. If you wanted to squeeze in a couple overs from Nabi, if he wasn't going to bowl to the left-handers, inside the first 6 was the best time, or even just after. Get 2 overs out of the way. It wouldn't have put... You could just feel the pressure building until he came on. And then once he came on and went for that 21, it was like a free-for-all. The runs just started to really flow. So they could have probably used him a little bit earlier. And that could have, you never know. They could have cut down the runs from 220 to 200. And on a high-scoring ground like that, that becomes chaseable. Whereas 220 might just be, 20 runs too much.
Okay, so the choice is Manish Pandey to open. Thoughts on that, Dan?
Interesting. I thought it would have been Kane go up to top of the order. I know he likes batting in the opening spot, and it's something he's done pretty well for New Zealand, and probably had his best season with Sunrisers opening the batting. So a slight surprise there, but Pandey's coming off a good innings in the last game, and they probably wanted to leave Kane at 3 just to give them that illusion of a little bit of depth.
All right, Dale, would you have gone the same way? I'm seeing Sanju Samson up to the stump, so it looks like whoever's having a bowl is also going to could very well be a spinner to start off with. But Manish Pandey opening, is this the way to go now for the rest of the season?
I think that could be for the rest of the season for them. It's the way they're going to go about it. Manish Pandey has opened the batting before. I think he's got I don't know how many IPL 100s he's got, but I know he got one for RCB a long time ago as an opening batter, so he knows how to do that job. And as Dan said, it does give the illusion with Kane coming in at 3 that they extend their batting lineup a little bit. Kane being their best batter. If they lose a wicket early, at least he's there, But if he gets out early, then all hope kind of goes with him too.
All right, 221 rather. 218 wasn't enough for CSK last night. Is this a sort of score you'll feel comfortable with, or you can't feel comfortable with anything now in Delhi, Dan?
I don't think you can feel comfortable with anything at Delhi. I think the wicket is so good and the boundaries are so small that you have to realise that 220 is gettable, and it does need a good bowling performance. And that's something that probably Rajasthan have slipped a little bit. They don't have that sort of lights out spinner, so it's going to have to be a really good bowling and fielding display from Rajasthan to keep Sunrisers at bay.
Dale, you feel like making a prediction? What does the gut say?
I mean, when you're chasing big scores like this, you kind of got to go for it, you know. So you get close and you win them, like Mumbai did last night, or sometimes you can absolutely blow out and you can be rolled for 150, 160. I'm going with the latter. I don't think Sunrisers will get anywhere near this.
All right, fair enough. Karthik Tyagi started off, and you could already see a bit of pace as it's flown through to Samson, who's back, who's not close to the stumps. So we'll see how things go and pick up the chat with Dale Steyn and Dan Vettori at the end of it all on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Time Out, powered by Intel. We've also got the evening game to look forward to, so we'll build up to that as well. Viewers in India, again, we should remind you, mask up in public, practice social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols, and of course, if you are eligible, do take your vaccine as soon as possible. The IPL continues to march along, and you can catch Vivo IPL live action and highlights on Disney Plus Hotstar. And we've got the Intel Fastest Fan First contest still up and running. So if you want to head over to the ESPN Cricket for Facebook page, that's your destination to stand to win some great prizes by answering a few simple questions. It's a big chase this for the Sunrisers. If they do get close to it, it'll make for a great conversation. So do join us then.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる